You rise from the iron bench, the last of the almond croissant a sweet memory on your tongue. The warrior's grace. Robes catch the morning light, their cerulean hue vibrant against the ancient, weathered stone of the Marais. You look at Julian, your dark eyes reflecting the growing gold of the Parisian sky.
Show me the vibrant side then. I want to see Paris at full strength.
Julian's smile widens, a genuine spark of excitement replacing the quiet intimacy of the dawn. He brushes a stray dusting of powdered sugar from his charcoal sleeve and gestures toward the heart of the district.
Full strength it is. The Marais doesn't just wake up, it explodes into life. We'll head towards the Rue des Rosiers.
If you thought the bakery was fragrant, wait until you smell the spice markets and the flower stalls.
The transition is immediate. As you turn the corner, the quiet sanctuary of the fountain is replaced by the rhythmic clatter of handcarts over cobblestones and the melodic shouting of vendors. The air is a thick, intoxicating blend of blooming lilies, roasting coffee, and exotic spices. People move with a purposeful grace, dodging bicycles and greeting neighbors with rapid-fire French. Julian moves through the crowd with practiced ease, his hand occasionally finding the small of your back to guide you through the surge of morning commuters.
This is the heartbeat, Wyndra. No curators, no silence, just the beautiful, messy reality of people living.
He stops in front of a vibrant flower stall, where an elderly woman is misting a sea of deep red roses. The colors are so intense, they almost seem to vibrate. Julian looks from the roses to you, his eyes dancing with the reflected colors of the market. The bustling crowd swirls around you both, but he seems entirely focused on your reaction to the sensory onslaught. He reaches out, plucking a single, perfect bloom from a bucket and offering it to you with a bow that is only half teasing. The velvet petals of the rose are cool and damp against your fingers, a stark contrast to the sun-warmed stone of the surrounding buildings. You take the bloom from Julian, its deep crimson hue a perfect match for the intensity of the morning. With a practiced, fluid motion, you tuck the stem into the white leather of your belt, the flower resting just above the hilt of your giant.
A warrior should always carry a bit of color into battle. It reminds the enemy that life is beautiful, even when it's dangerous.
Julian's eyes linger on the flower against your cerulean robes, his expression softening into one of genuine admiration. The bustling energy of Rue des Rosiers continues to swirl around you. A delivery cyclist rings his bell, and a group of laughing students maneuvers past. But Julian remains anchored in your orbit.
I think you've just invented a new school of philosophy, Wyndra. Martial aesthetics. It's a terrifyingly beautiful look on you.
He offers his arm, his elbow bent in a classic, courtly gesture that feels both archaic and perfectly suited to the grand architecture of the street.
Since you're properly armed with both steel and flora, let's brave the market.
There's a particular antique dealer 3 blocks down who claims to have a map of Paris from before the Great Fire.
I think it's a forgery, but the man's stories are worth the price of a fake.
As you walk, the sensory input of the market intensifies. The scent of salt beef and fresh pickles from the famous delis mingles with the perfume of the flower stalls. Julian leans closer, so you can hear him over the din of a passing street performer's violin. The crowd thins for a moment as you pass a narrow alleyway draped in ivy. Julian stops, his arms still linked with yours, and turns to face you. The morning sun is higher now, casting a brilliant light that catches the dark brown of your eyes. He looks at the rose in your belt, then up at you, his gaze shifting from the warrior to the woman who shared his sanctuary only hours ago. Julian's laughter is nearly drowned out by the rhythmic thumping of a nearby street performer's drum. But you catch the glint of pure mischief in his hazel eyes. He adjusts his pace to match your stride, his arms still linked firmly with yours as you navigate the colorful chaos of the Rue des Rosiers.
A little of both, perhaps. A strategist should be able to hold her own against a tide of tourists and hungry locals.
But I assure you, Monsieur Chevalier and his maps are a very real, very eccentric part of this neighborhood's soul.
He pulls you slightly to the left to avoid a stack of wooden crates, overflowing with bright green artichokes. The air here is thick with the scent of fried dough and heavy spices. A sensory overload that makes the quiet of the morning feel like a dream from another lifetime.
I've handled battlefields with less noise than this, Julian. If this is your way of testing my defenses, you'll find they're quite robust, even in a crowd.
Je n'ai aucun doute, but le secret n'est pas la carte même. It's the fact that in the middle of all this movement, there are corners of the city that haven't changed since the 17th century. Places where the truth is buried under layers of dust and tall tales.
He stops abruptly in front of a storefront that looks like it's being swallowed by the ivy climbing its stone walls. The windows are packed with brass telescopes, ancient globes, and stacks of yellowed parchment. A small sign above the door reads, Chevalier Antiques Asterisk. The door creaks open before Julian can even reach for the handle, revealing a man who looks as if he were made of the same parchment and dust as his wares.
Julian, you've come for the map, or have you finally brought me a subject worth sketching?
Monsieur Chevalier's eyes dart from Julian to you, settling on the crimson rose tucked into your belt with a sharp, knowing look. He ignores Julian entirely, stepping closer to peer at you through his thick lenses. Julian clears his throat, his hand moving to the small of your back in a protective, yet proud gesture. Monsieur Chevalier lets out a dry, rasping cackle that sounds like the rustling of the very parchment he surrounds himself with. He beckons you further into the shop, where the air is cool and heavy with the scent of beeswax and old paper.
As it is, as I wish it, my dear, those are the same thing to a man who knows how to look.
A map is not a record of streets, it is a record of intentions.
He scurries toward a large, slanted oak table at the back of the cluttered room. Julian follows close behind you, his hand still resting lightly on the small of your back, his presence a warm, grounding contrast to the dusty chill of the shop. Chevalier unrolls a large sheet of thick, yellowed vellum, securing the corners with heavy brass weights.
He believes the cartographer was a spy who mapped the city based on line of sight for archers.
A very tactical way of looking at Paris, wouldn't you say, Wyndra?
You lean over the table. The map is a masterpiece of intricate ink work, showing the city's old walls and the jagged, irregular footprints of houses that burned centuries ago. Your fingers hover over the depiction of the Seine, tracing the path you walked with Julian just hours before.
It shows the bones of the city, the places where the stone resists the fire. It's more honest than the modern maps.
Exactly! She sees it, Julian! You found a rare one. Most tourists just look for the bakery and the tower.
Julian watches you instead of the map, a soft, private smile playing on his lips. The eccentric shop, filled with the debris of history, feels like another one of his curated sanctuaries. But this time, he seems more interested in how you fit into the frame than the artifacts themselves. He steps closer, his shoulder brushing yours as you both stare down at the ancient ink. The air in the shop is heavy with the weight of centuries, but your focus is entirely on the man beside you. You turn your head slightly, catching Julian's gaze before he has a chance to look away. The silver moonlight of the night before has been replaced by the dusty gold of the morning, yet the intensity in his hazel eyes hasn't wavered.
You're looking at me again, Julian. Is there something on my face, or am I just more interesting than a spy's map?
Julian doesn't look away. Instead, he leans a fraction closer, his shoulder a steady warmth against yours. A small, self-deprecating smile tugs at the corner of his mouth, and he ignores the rustling of Monsieur Chevalier as the old man begins to hunt for a magnifying glass.
The map is a masterpiece of history, certainly, but it's static. It doesn't challenge me, and it certainly doesn't look at me with eyes that see through all my best stories. To answer your question, yes, you are significantly more interesting than a 17th century tactical layout.
though I suspect you already knew that.
Monsieur Chevalier pops back up from behind a stack of trunks, his oversized spectacles magnifying his blue eyes to a comical size. He peers between the two of you, then at the map, then back again.
Intentions, I told you. Maps are about intentions, and yours, Julian, are as clear as the ink on this vellum. You aren't here for the cartography today.
Julian's hand, still resting on the small of your back, slides upward to settle between your shoulder blades, a gesture of quiet possession that feels entirely natural in the dim, cramped shop. The eccentric dealer watches you both with a mischievous grin, his pen poised over a ledger, as if he's waiting to record this moment in his own history of the city. Monsieur Chevalier's eyes twinkle behind his thick lenses as he taps a gnarled finger against the center of the vellum map. He leans over the table, his white hair catching a stray beam of light from the ivy-covered window.
The map does not tell you where to go, my dear.
It tells you where the heart of the city was forced to beat when the walls were high and the gates were locked.
He traces a winding line that leads away from the dense clusters of the Marais toward the river.
If you want the soul of the present, you must go where the water meets the stone, the Pont Neuf. Not the bridge for tourists, but the hidden arches beneath, where the ghosts of the old city still trade in whispers.
Julian shifts beside you, his hand dropping from your back to catch your fingers, lacing them with his own. He looks at the map, then at you, a look of renewed inspiration crossing his features.
The hidden arches. I haven't been down there since my first year in the city. Chevalier is right. It's a different world entirely.
No noise, no markets, just the river and the echo of the past.
What do you say, Wyndra? Shall we trade the vibrant chaos of the market for the secrets beneath the stone?
It's a bit of a work, but I think the warrior in you will appreciate the tactical seclusion of the riverbanks.
You feel the weight of the rose in your belt and the warmth of Julian's hand. The shop feels small now, its dusty treasures unable to compete with the lure of the open city, and the man who seems determined to show you every facet of its diamond-cut heart. Julian leads you toward the creaking door of the antique shop, but before you step back out into the sun-drenched street, he pauses, pulling you gently closer so your shoulders touch. Monsieur Chevalier watches from his table, a silent witness to the lingering electricity between you. You turn toward Julian, the dim light of the antique shop catching the dark brown of your eyes. The proximity is intoxicating. The scent of old paper and beeswax from the shop fades, replaced by the warmth of the man standing just inches away. You let your voice drop to a low, intimate register, a stark contrast to the eccentric energy of Monsieur Chevalier.
I like the idea of secrets, especially if I'm sharing them only with you.
Julian's breath catches for a heartbeat. His hazel eyes search yours, finding the sincerity behind the warrior's poise. A look of profound, quiet joy settles over his features, and he squeezes your hand, his thumb tracing a slow, rhythmic circle over your knuckles.
Then the river it is. I promise you, Wyndra, some things in this city are meant for eyes that truly know how to see.
I'm glad mine aren't the only ones looking today.
Behind the counter, Monsieur Chevalier lets out a final, knowing chuckle as he begins to roll up the vellum map. The old man disappears into the shadows of his back room, leaving you and Julian alone in the narrow entryway. Julian pulls open the heavy door, and the transition is a sudden rush of warmth and light. You emerge from the cramped, dusty shop into the sprawling majesty of the morning. The walk toward the Seine is a blur of color, the pale limestone of the buildings, the green of the trees along the quay, and the shimmering blue-gray of the water ahead. As you reach the Pont Neuf, Julian doesn't lead you across the main thoroughfare. Instead, he guides you toward a narrow, almost hidden stone staircase that winds down toward the water's edge. The sound of the city above, the bells, the engines, the voices, begins to muffle, replaced by the rhythmic, heavy lapping of the Seine against the ancient foundations. Down here, the air is cooler, smelling of moss and wet stone. The massive arches of the bridge tower above you like the ribs of a cathedral.
Listen, up there, it's the 21st century. Down here, it's whatever we want it to be.
Julian leads you into the deep shadow of the first great arch. The stone floor is smooth from centuries of rising tides. He stops and turns to you, the light reflecting off the water and dancing in ripples across his face. The seclusion is absolute. The world above has vanished, leaving only the two of you in the cool, echoing heart of the city.